guys, it's Nurse Jay again at Nursing the Truth. I'm going to make a really quick video. This is my Halloween series, the month of October. Trying to find ghoulish things for us to talk about. You need to go watch my video about the women were burned for oils and herbs. This is the witch hunt that we were deemed as devils. So let's talk about Halloween, the history of Halloween. We know it's on Halloween, October 31st. And it originated with an ancient Celtic festival of Samhain when people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. That's kind of like the originality of it. Now, in the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as a time to honor All Saints, called All Saints' Day, incorporated some of the traditions of Samhain. The evening before was known as All Hallows' Eve and later Halloween. So there you go. The Catholic Church is still incorporating the pagan festivals in their holy days. You see, church seekers, you need to go read your history of the church to see really we're all pagans, just a little twist in your martini. So don't do this bullshit, trunk or treat and all that shit. Just get your kids' asses in costumes, go door to door, ring the doorbell. Happy Halloween, All Saints' Day, all warding off ghosts and spirits living the material world. Okay, moving on. So, now the Celts who lived 2,000 years ago in the era that is now Ireland, okay, the United Kingdom and Northern France, celebrated the new year on November 1st. Now, the day marked the end of summer and the harvest and the beginning of the dark, cold winter, a time of year that was often associated with human death. And when the sun went down, autumn, and then at the spring equinox, the sun resurrected from the dead. Your Jesus story. The Celts believed that on the night before the new year, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. On the night of October 31st, they celebrated Samhain when it was believed that the ghost of the dead returned to earth. In addition to causing trouble and damaging crops, the Celts thought the presence of the otherworldly spirits made it easier for the Druids or Celtic priests to make predictions about the future. For a people entirely dependent on the volatile natural world, those prophecies were an important source of comfort and direction during the long, dark winter. The Druids would build huge bonfires where the people gathered to burn crops and animals as sacrifices to the Celtic deities. During the celebration, the Celts wore costumes typically consisting of animal heads and skins and attempted to tell each other's fortunes. When the celebration was over, they relit their hearth fires, which they had extinguished earlier that evening, from the sacred bonfire to help protect them for the coming winter. In 43 AD, the Roman Empire had conquered the majority of the Celtic territory. And in course of the 400 years that they ruled the Celtic lands, 2 festivals of Roman origin were combined with the traditional Celtic celebration of Samhain. On May 13, 609 CE, Pope Boniface IV dedicated the Pantheon in Rome in honor of all Christian martyrs, and the Catholic feast of All Martyrs' Day was established in the Western Church. Pope Gregory III later expanded the festival to include all saints as well as all martyrs and moved the observance from May 13th to November the 1st. By the 9th century, the influence of Christianity had spread into the Celtic lands where it gradually blended with and supplanted the older Celtic rites. And in 1000 CE, the church would make November 2nd, All Souls' Day, a day to honor the dead. It's widely believed today that the church was attempting to replace the Celtic festival of the dead with a related church-sanctioned holiday. All Souls' Day was celebrated similarly to Samhain, with big bonfires and parades and dressing up in costumes as saints, angels, and devils. The All Saints' Day celebration was also called All Hallows or All Hallowmas Day. And the night before it, the traditional night of Samhain in the Celtic religion began to be called All Hallows' Eve and eventually Halloween. Now, the celebration of Halloween was extremely limited in the new colonial England because of the rigid Protestant belief systems there. Halloween was much more common in Maryland and the southern colonies. All the beliefs and customs of different European ethnic groups as well as American Indians meshed. A distantly American version of Halloween began to emerge. The first celebrations included play parties, public events held to celebrate the harvest, where neighbors would share stories of the dead, telling each other's fortunes and dancing and singing. And then colonial Halloween festivities also featured the telling of ghost stories and mischiefs making of all kinds. And by the middle of the 19th century, annual autumn festivities were common. But Halloween was not yet celebrated everywhere in the country. It was in the second half of the 19th century, America was flooded with new immigrants. These new immigrants, especially millions of Irish fleeing the Irish potato famine, helped to popularize the celebration of Halloween happiness naturally. So, borrowing from English and Irish traditions, Americans began to dress up in costumes and go house to house asking for food or money, a practice that eventually became today's trick or treat tradition. Young women believed that on Halloween they could divine the name or appearance of their future husband by doing tricks with yarn, apple parings, or mirrors. And in the late 1800s, there was a move in America to mold Halloween into a holiday more about community and neighborly get-togethers than about ghost pranks and witchcraft. At the turn of the century, Halloween parties for both children and adults became the most common way to celebrate the day. Parties focused on games, food of the season, and costumes. Parents were encouraged by newspapers and community leaders to take anything frightening or grotesque out of Halloween celebrations. Because of these efforts, Halloween lost most of its superstitious and religious overtones by the beginning of the 20th century. By the 20s and 30s, Halloween had become a secular, community-centered holiday with parades and a town-wide Halloween party as featured entertainment. And by the 50s, town leaders had successfully limited vandalism, and Halloween had evolved into a holiday directly mainly at the young. Due to high numbers of young children during the 50s being born, parties moved from town civic centers into the classroom or home, where they could be easily accommodated. Thus, a new American tradition was born and continued to grow, and today Americans spend an estimated $6 billion annually on Halloween, making it the country's second largest commercial holiday after Christmas. Now, the soul cakes. Now, if you're a Catholic, you should know about these kind of things. The American Halloween tradition of trick-or-treating probably dates back to the early All Souls Day parades in London. During the festivities, poor citizens would beg for food and families would give them pastries called soul cakes in return for their promise to pray for the family's dead relatives. So the distribution of soul cakes was encouraged by the church as a way to replace the ancient practice of leaving food and wine for roaming spirits. The practice, which was referred to as going a souling, was eventually taken up by children who would visit the houses in their neighborhood and be given ale, food, and money. The tradition of dressing in costumes for Halloween has both European and Celtic roots. Hundreds of years ago, winter was uncertain and frightening time, and food supplies often ran low. And for the many people afraid of the dark, the short days of winter was constantly worrisome. Oh, and the black cats. Halloween has always been a holiday filled with mystery, magic, and superstition. It began as a Celtic end of summer festival during which people felt especially close to deceased relatives and friends. For these friendly spirits, they set places at the dinner table, left treats on the doorsteps and along the side of the road, and lit candles to help loved ones find their way back to the spirit world. Today's Halloween ghosts are often depicted as more fearsome and malevolent, and our customs are superstitious and scarier too. We avoid crossing paths and, being around black cats. They must bring us bad luck. Oh, but this is one of my favorite colors, is the black cat. We try not to walk under ladders for the same reason. The superstition may have come from the ancient Egyptians, who believed that triangles were sacred. Wow. Pyramids? Triangles? There's something sacred in those. But also may have something to do with the fact that walking under a leaning ladder tends to be fairly unsafe. And around Halloween, especially, we try to avoid breaking mirrors, stepping on cracks in the road, or spilling salt. So guys, there we have it. Basically a little history about Halloween, where we get some of our customs, our costumes, bobbing for apples, praying to the dead, leading them to the light. You see, we are all pagans. Nothing's changed. There's nothing new under the sun. And the Catholic Church continues to make it their holy day, but under the auspices of the pagan's blood. Until next video, Hotep and Ashe, and we'll see you soon.